I'm not telling you got to always be learning. There's a time to grow and a time to kind of chill. But if you've gotten to that place of complacency, one of the first steps you can take to just begin pulling yourself out of that rut is, before you just jump into learning something, really ask yourself, okay, strategically, what would be the most valuable skill for me to learn now that's the most different from what I've learned before, and pursue that. When you're honest with yourself, is your tech job kind of on autopilot and you've started to just coast? Look, not all software jobs that are comfortable are bad. I'm definitely not saying you should tolerate a toxic, super stressful job that overwhelms you so much that you burn out. But the issue is prolonged complacency with very little growth. So ask yourself, when was the last time you felt truly challenged in your tech job? Since becoming a tech career coach, I've helped many people recognize when they're starting to slide into complacency, getting a little too comfortable with their tech job, and help them pull out of it and make some changes before it's too late. And in this episode, I want to offer you the same hope. But first, let me tell you exactly how this happened to me most recently, about 7 years ago. After about 20 years in the software industry at that point, I'd been at the same software consulting company for 10 years. And I'd worked on many different projects with many different clients. So actually, there was a lot of opportunity for technical growth. And I learned a lot more about soft skills and persuasion, but I was still stuck working for corporate jobs. I was still an employee. And after 20 years, of experience in this industry, I'd grown bored and I'd gotten way too comfortable. And so when I had some serious burnout and serious insomnia problems, which I've talked about in an earlier episode on the show, suddenly I was faced with an open market that didn't really value all my skills as much as I knew I was really worth. So in this episode today, I want to share with you, the things that I've learned that will help you prevent that from happening to you, and some of the things that I've done and that I help my own clients with, so that you don't get into a situation where you've become a little too comfortable with your job because, hey, sometimes we got crazy life circumstances going on. We can't always be pushing ourselves to grow. But if you let that go too long, you can get yourself into a situation where suddenly you have less options than you did before. The first big danger is giving in to the illusion of security. Look, our industry changes really fast. I don't have to tell you this. And if you stay too long at one job doing the same thing or on the same project or in the same tech stack or just as a developer for a couple decades, suddenly you'll find yourself in a place where the things that used to motivate you to do your job aren't as motivating. And when you go out on the open market, let's say you get laid off or you just have to make a change, it can become a lot harder than if you hadn't had it be so long since you've grown. And that's just going to make you less competitive. If you get complacent, if you become comfortable, employers out there are not going to find as much value in your career as they may have a few years earlier. And I've fallen into this both in the story I just got done telling you, but amongst, other times over the 2 decades that I was working in corporate culture. And a big part of this that I think many of us don't think about these days is how companies, they want to be more efficient, right? They're trying to automate things. They're trying to make jobs that maybe used to exist a few years ago irrelevant due to AI and due to automation. So, if you're not keeping your skills up, there's always the chance that what you do can get replaced. I don't say this, by the way, to freak you out. I say this just as a mild reality check that, if you need to shake yourself out of complacency, you've been doing the same thing for too long, just know that, you've basically invested a lot in one thing. You've put all your eggs, so to speak, in one basket. And if the industry shifts too much, you haven't grown in a while, You've got less options that are available to you. So what are the signs that you've become too comfortable? How can you recognize this in yourself and go, am I in this place where I could be at risk because I've gotten just way too lax and I've just started to coast in my tech career? Well, the first sign is a complete lack or barely any learning. If you haven't pursued some sort of course, some sort of certification, if you haven't looked for opportunities in your day job to try to, get exposure to new technology, get exposure to new management techniques, it depends on what your job is. Maybe you're in data science and you've been using the same tools for 2 to 5 years. That's one sign that you can look for that you might be in a place where you've gotten a little bit too comfortable. Now, can we constantly learn all the time? Of course not. And you're going to have to check this a little bit yourself and see, internally, use some discernment. How do you actually feel about this? But this is just one of a couple other signs I'm going to give you in a second that you might have gotten a little too comfortable and you could be sliding into complacency. The second sign that you could be really getting into trouble with comfort is all your work becomes routine. It's repetitive. You're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And hey, if you're a software engineer or a programmer, sure, every task we get or every feature we build or every ticket that we pull off the Kanban board, whatever we're using for managing our work, the requirements of that work might be different. The feature might be different. But if we're pretty much doing kind of the same work with the same set of technologies in the same domain, that can be a sign that if we've been doing that too long, we could be putting ourselves at risk of irrelevancy or just our skills being less valuable because we've gotten way too comfortable. The third sign you can look for that you may not be growing enough, you may have gotten too comfortable, is if you are not networking at all. If you're doing nothing to make connections with new companies with better opportunities, deepen your relationships in your existing company, you're getting so comfortable that you're kind of, again, going back to that illusion of security I talked about in the first point, you're falling into this false belief that you can just stay in this job and stay with the same level of skills and nothing negative is going to happen. And hey, if you're at a place where you are trying to meet other people, who might have opportunities for you, who might be able to push you out of your comfort zone, who might be able to encourage you to grow if you've been stuck without growing for a long time. I do have a Patreon and a YouTube membership you can join. And for a very low cost, I've got a Discord server that you can join. There's a lot of people in there, great people that follow the channel, but basically customers of mine. They're either members, they're coaching clients, they've bought my courses, and we're all helping each other grow in our careers. So, if you're starting to feel complacent or you're knowing you need to grow and you're like, man, I'm having a hard time just motivating myself, join the Patreon, join the YouTube membership, get in Discord, share what you're going through. You're not alone. There's other people struggling too. Sometimes it can really help. I know it's helped me just to know that there's other people out there who are struggling with the same thing that you are, and to lift each other up and encourage each other through those times when we really need to kind of kick ourselves in the butt and keep going. And the last sign that you may have grown too comfortable is you've just gotten too content with the status quo. You're feeling no need to advance. You don't want to take on any new responsibilities. If there's new projects, let's say even at your current job, that you could step up and try to lead, or that you could try to, convince your manager that you want to work on, even though maybe the tech is a little bit differently, you'd never step up. You never really look for new opportunities. If that's you, if you've gotten to a place where, you're letting opportunities pass you by, that's another big sign that you may have just gotten way too comfortable with your tech job, and you're really at risk of possibly some negative consequences. So what are the consequences? What can go wrong if this is the strategy that you're kind of stuck in your tech career right now? Well, the first one, which is pretty obvious, is just overall career stagnation. Your career is going to stop growing. It's going to come to a halt. you're not going to have many opportunities to be promoted because the value of what you do isn't going to look that important. Also, your management, peers, other people in the industry, if they look at your experience, they look at what you're doing, they look at where you've been over your career, they're going to see a track record of you not stepping up and growing and getting new opportunities. And look, if you know about my brand, this channel was originally called Healthy Software Developer. The last thing that I'm on here to do is to try to push us all to a unhealthy level of, hustle culture where we're burning ourselves out to accomplish things. But I'm really talking in this episode today about the flip side of that, which is when you've gone too far into just refusing to basically push yourself to try to accomplish new things. It really can put you into a dangerous situation. I have a lot of coaching clients that will come to me sometimes. They've been at the same company for 10 years, 15 years, and they want to make a change. They want to leave the company. They want to go out onto the open market, and they're really in a tough spot. I help them. I encourage them the most I can, but they do have some negative consequences. And some of those I can't overcome, of course. I can help them do the best they can to try to present themselves well in the market. I can have them try to be clear about their value proposition. I can help them tell a really compelling story about, what they could do for the company that they want to join. But at the end of the day, there still are questions that can be raised if somebody looks at their experience and kind of thinks, man, what has this person been doing for so many years? The other consequence is just job insecurity. Look, if you get complacent and comfortable for too long, I think you know this. If the company decides to lay people off and they don't have to eliminate the whole project or the whole department, they're just trying to, cut dead weight. I hate that term, but, they're trying to basically save costs by getting rid of people that aren't performing as well. If you don't have obvious higher value or any, demonstration of ambition at all to your team, you, as you, I'm sure know, are going to then be one of the people that's probably considered before others to get let go if there are layoffs. You're going to reduce your earning potential, period. You're going to make less money than your peers. If you stop growing, if you get too comfortable, why would the company reward you? You're not adding extra value. You're not increasing, what you can do for the company. You're not actually making a bigger impact. There's no reason for them to do it. And then the biggest consequence is really you're missing opportunities. If you let your career just go by and you don't ever take hold of new opportunities that fall in front of you, or you don't, there's things that you could be pursuing, but they require some study. They require reading some books. They require going to some meetups. They require, maybe taking a course or getting a certification or something like that. If you just kind of let yourself stay where you are and you never push yourself to reinvest in your career in some way, there are a lot of opportunities that other people are getting other than you that you'd be totally suitable for if you can just kind of pick yourself back up, remind yourself, hey, I can't stay comfortable for too long, and push yourself to grow again. So what's the solution to all this? I don't want to leave you with just this big feeling of Debbie Downer. That's not the purpose of these episodes. I want to give you some hope. I want to encourage you, offer you some solutions. The biggest solution to consider to all of this is there's a lot of changes we can make in our career, but the one, if you're in this place where you've gotten stuck, that you really need to focus on is growth. Depending on where you're at too, growing within your own industry at your company or in corporate America may have gotten to be a dead end for you. I'm helping more and more people these days start to consider and move into self-employment, whether that's working as a consultant, a high-paid consultant for themselves, if that's starting to create some courses or some content that they then sell to help people, with the knowledge they have, or starting a very small, solo or maybe with a co-founder product company. Again, not VC funded or anything like that. The last thing you want to do is step out of the stress of corporate America and then put that stress back on you with, a bunch of investors that you're going to owe money to. But whether you are considering self-employment or you're staying within your job, you need to be pushing yourself to continuously learn. If you're going to stay in the tech industry, you know this, and I hate to, hit you over the head with it again. I have to remember this all the time. When I started working for myself, it was really easy for me to just keep writing code on my website, doing stuff I'm comfortable with, reading about technologies I could use for, my landing page and things like that. But I had to push myself to learn about email marketing, to read about copywriting, to learn about, my finances and doing my taxes and, keeping track of my overhead and, selling my products and services and talking to customers about what kind of problems they have. If you do move into a radically different area of your career, whether it's a management position, you've never led a team technically, if you're a product manager or something like that, you're moving from, managing an internal software product that, customers, commercial people don't see, it's really just used to run the business, to a commercial, publicly visible product, suddenly you're going to be faced with a different set of skills to learn. And that's a good thing. Again, I'm not telling you got to always be learning. There's a time to grow and a time to kind of chill. But if you've gotten to that place of complacency, one of the first steps you can take to just begin pulling yourself out of that rut is, before you just jump into learning something, really ask yourself, okay, strategically, what would be the most valuable skill for me to learn now that's the most different from what I've learned before, and pursue that. I think it's all too easy for some of us to just, let's say you're a programmer, learn another programming language, because we've learned a lot of programming languages. We know we can do that, when maybe the value that would really increase our career's ability to get us ahead is in some totally different skill than programming. It could be, let's say, persuasion or sales or presenting or something like that. So whatever you got to do, get yourself back into a learning mindset. Whenever I've been able to embrace this, it really pushes my career to the next level. And really what that's all about is diversifying your skills. Much like if you invest in the stock market, putting all your money in one investment of one company is dangerous, because if something happens to that company, you could lose all your money. It's the same thing with your skills. There is more money to be made, let's say, if you're a consultant and sometimes you specialize in a specific problem area or industry vertical. But, even if you do that, there is some risk involved. It's always good when we're learning, at least this has helped me tons, to try to learn stuff that's is different from what we've known before, that's going to broaden, our ability to make an impact, to be able to have more control over our career, so that we can weather the storm when layoffs come, or AI comes along, or there's giant shifts in the market, or our company decides to go a different direction. The more different types of skills you have in different aspects of what a business needs to do that you can help them with, the better chance that you're going to be able to just continue to get employment, continue to grow, and not get stuck. And I made an earlier episode a couple weeks ago about how, there is danger to continue just working for corporate companies. If you're earlier in your career, I would say, hey, that's great. I worked for companies for 20 years. I think working for companies offers tons of benefits. You have less risk. But there's a time when actually working for companies holds you back. And I really probably should have started working for myself 10, 12 years in instead of waiting 20 years. So, if you want to also have the best chance that you don't get stuck, you don't get too comfortable, you don't get too complacent, considering working for yourself, you can go back and check out that episode. That's going to all of a sudden confront you with a lot of things that you have never dealt with before, that at first might feel a little overwhelming. It's almost like starting over again. Let's say, again, you're a developer. If you remember the days when you were a noob, when you had never written any code professionally for a company, and what it was like that first company, how overwhelmed you felt, but how much you grew. If you decide to work for yourself, at least my experience has been, it's very similar. You feel a little bit overwhelmed at first with how little you feel like you have a handle on, and but if you stick with it, believe in yourself, push yourself just like you did when you started. That's really what you need to do to kind of get to that next level. If you've gotten to that point in your career where corporate work just isn't doing it for you anymore. And hey, if you're struggling to try to figure out, which direction should I go? I know I need to grow. Maybe I have become complacent, or maybe I'm just stuck and immobilized. I have a career coaching package called Career Compass. It's my most popular tech career coaching package. I've done it with, I think, close to 50 people at this point. But if you need any help, there's a link in the description. You can check that out. You got to fill out an application. I only take on a certain number of clients a month, but everybody's always free to apply. I've got a waiting list if I don't have a spot for you. But, if you need any kind of help, I'm always here. I'm not, again, trying to push my services. I'm trying to add value on YouTube here, but this is my business. This is what I do now. I help a lot of people in tech. I've had about close to 120 clients over the last 5 years now that I've helped. So you need any help, just reach out. I'm here, happy to help you. But tell me, have you ever let yourself slide a little too long in your career and gotten yourself into a bit of trouble? Man, I've been there. What happened? What were the consequences? What did you deal with when that kind of happened to you? And how did you get yourself out of it? Share with us some of the things that you did that got you to that next level in your career, found you some guidance, gave you a new direction, gave you some hope, gave you some motivation. I think that'd be really motivating and helpful to everybody else who watches the channel. So until next time, thanks.